Welcome. Thanks for being with us. We continue on our series, Feel Better Fast and Make It Last. And we've gone through our brain Excel formula. You got to get your brain right, and then your rational mind right, and then your attachments. And we're going to talk about inspiration. And talking about inspiration, I am here with Tana, who inspires me every day in so many ways. And your reviews, when you write a review of the podcast, it inspires us.
We read them. It also helps us because we know what you guys want to hear, and we like doing that. So I want to read this one. This is from Kindred Spirit. Love, love, love your podcast. I listen regularly on my commute to and from work. I've been a fan ever since the Daniel Plan, so long time. Ever since the Daniel Plan came out, and I Googled you to see just who Rick Warren was. So they started listening to the Daniel Plan without even knowing who Saddleback Church or Rick Warren was. And was keeping company with. Big fan of Daily Hope also. I get your regular emails as well. So much appreciate the good advice and great information. I share much information with my human AP students during our nervous system unit. That's awesome. I really appreciate reinforcement of basic concepts I've preached for 3 decades, as well as the newer modern info that is not in the textbook yet. Keep doing what you do. You are changing lives for the better. Awesome. Thank you so much.
I love that.
Yeah, me too.
So in this week, we are going to talk about an area of your brain that's so important and it just doesn't get any respect. It's called the Nucleus Accumbens. The Nucleus Accumbens. What's that? It's a little pleasure button in your brain. You have 2 of them. And when you push on them, you feel happy, driven, motivated. You're going to do it again. And it works on a neurotransmitter called dopamine, but you don't want to push that thing too often. Otherwise, you wear
Well, and we write
out.
a lot about this. This is precisely why food is addictive. It's precisely why, certain things become addictive, like video games and stuff like that. So it's because of this little nucleus accumbens thing and what happens to it when you do certain things.
Well, interesting. There's a book on this, on how the Silicon Valley steals your mind. And the book,
And the food companies have known about it for a very long time.
and the book is called Hooked. And it's how to create addictive products. And so our iPhones or your Samsung phone is totally addictive. And it was purposefully made that way, so it's constantly stealing your attention. But we're going to protect your pleasure centers so that you can live with passion and purpose and avoid addictions and depression. And passion and purpose is associated with so many good things.
Like longer life
Life,
and happier life.
longer life, better sleep, self-love, personal growth, more happiness, less depression. It's also, purpose has been associated with mental sharpness, less risk of Alzheimer's disease, and slower decline with
Isn't that interesting?
age.
That's so interesting.
And here at
Lower
Amen
risk of
Clinics,
Alzheimer's disease because you're purposeful. That's
because
fascinating.
you're purposeful.
That's just fascinating.
It gives you a reason to get up in the morning. It gives you a reason to eat right. It gives you a reason to do the right thing. And here at Amen Clinics, we have our purpose statement. We want to change how psychiatric medicine is practiced by 2024 by adding imaging. We talk about that on the podcast. Natural ways to heal the brain in a personalized medicine context.
Yeah, and in a like on a very personal level, and I know some of you will relate to this if you are parents or you've got parents that you take care of, things like that. Because I've got a daughter, right, that's underage, and I often there's this little bit of worry in the back of your mind that you need to take care of yourself because you've got this person you have to take care of, and that's always been there for me from the minute I became a mom. How I take care of myself completely changed the minute I became a mom. And then it got worse the day she walked in the kitchen and said, I have a goal for you. You have to live to be 100. I'm like, why? You can't give me that goal. But she worries about something happening to me. And now all of a sudden it's a worry, but it's not necessarily a bad worry. Because what I find is even though it's annoying that she did that, I find myself, even when I don't feel like getting up and exercising, even when I don't feel like eating something healthier, I feel like going and having something that isn't good for me, that little voice her little voice in the back of my head going, I need you. You need to be here, is just always there. And that's purposeful, right? That's purpose.
And so few people actually think about that children do what you do, not what you tell them to do. So are you modeling health or are you modeling illness? So getting in touch with your purpose is so important.
Well, and just being here till I'm 100, if I am a complete burden to her, is not helpful.
Well, and you had her a little bit later, so she's
Right.
only going to be like, what, if you're 100,
I was
she's
35.
65.
Right.
And you totally want to see what kind of adult she's going to be. I mean,
Right.
she's an awesome teenager. So where does passion and purpose live in the brain? And so we talked about the nucleus accumbens. There are also deep structures in your brain that you need to keep healthy, because the areas that produce dopamine and respond to dopamine, when they die, you end up with Parkinson's disease. You end up with movement disorders. You end up with depression. So you want to protect your pleasure centers.
Yeah.
So now I've mentioned dopamine. It doesn't mean you're a dope. It's a very important neurotransmitter that is involved with pleasure and happiness and joy and reward and motivation and focus. It also smooths motor movements. And it is incredibly important. And the nucleus accumbens, that's where cocaine works.
Right.
That's where smoking
Sugar,
works.
fat, and salt.
That's where sugar, fat, and salt work.
Food companies
And-
figured that out a long time ago.
And which is why when something awesome happens, you jump when you get excited, or you freeze when you get scared, because it's messing that part, or you get crazy. Like Tana is totally
Go a
gets
little psycho.
a little psycho.
Getting scared is not a good thing.
When dopamine is too low, people get depressed. You think of people with Parkinson's, they often get depressed. They have apathy, low energy, they don't focus very well, and they can have tremors. When dopamine is too high, so think of that hit of cocaine that's excessive, anxiety, agitation, aggression, obsession, confusion, racing thoughts. And what I argue
So wait, let me clarify this. Are you trying to say that the fight or flight response is connected to dopamine being too high or too low?
Well, it can be similar to that, but that's actually not dopamine, that's adrenaline. So adrenaline, if you get scared,
Right.
your eyeballs, your iris gets big, your heart rate goes fast, your hands get cold. So that's different. Then we're on a different system
all right.
a little bit. But I want to just go over the addiction cycle. So you engage in actions that increase dopamine. And it could be you're on Tinder or you're on Match and you go, whoa, I like that. And so you feel high or you feel pleasure.
And didn't someone study this and people who didn't do well on those sites got depressed?
That's right. I
Interesting.
did.
Oh, you.
Dr. Oz and I
someone
did.
did.
Someone did, yeah. My husband.
Like, why
but
are you
who
studying
knows?
Tinder?
Not
are you doing studying
it for
Tinder?
myself.
Yeah,
trust
that would
me.
be really bad for flight or fight response. You would be flying, I'd be fighting. So.
That's back to the addiction cycle, my daily threat of my life.
Gives me my dopamine.
There's something to that. So you engage in actions that increase dopamine. You threaten your husband's life. You feel high or pleasure when you do that. Then, when dopamine wears off, you feel withdrawal, flat, or depressed. So you re-engage. So the next day you threaten me again in dopamine-producing behavior, even if it's bad for you.
It's not bad for me, though.
So let's go with cocaine. Feel high or pleasurable, but when it wears off, you feel withdrawal, flat, or depressed. You re-engage, use cocaine again, and you feel better, but the more you do it, when you dump dopamine, we're going to talk about that, you actually begin to wear out the nucleus accumbens. So what that means, it takes
like overworking a muscle.
more and more
Right.
in order to get the same response. And that's the cycle of addiction.
Right.
And so how you break it is you don't dump dopamine, you drip dopamine. And you have to take care of your pleasure centers. And people who are obese, their pleasure centers are not responsive. So, if you don't eat a lot of cake and donuts and brownies and really high fat, high salt, high sugar foods, you protect your nucleus accumbens.
Yeah, and
so
then
if
you
have
notice
a little,
when you have a bite of something, you're like, "Ew, that's really sweet."
Right.
But if you don't, then it's like takes more and more.
And so when we come back, we are going to teach you how to take care of your pleasure centers so that you can feel better fast and make it last. And if you go to feelbetterfast.com and pre-order the book, we have all sorts of gifts for you. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We're talking about dopamine and protecting your pleasure centers so that you can feel better fast and make it last. And one of the ways you drip dopamine into our brains is you send a review for the podcast.
Okay, so this is Who Knew? This podcast is full of insightful wisdom for a variety of aspects you may not connect to brain health. So refreshing to know they're looking into new ways to diagnose and treat various brain issues. I love it. So yeah, it's true because everything connects to your brain. So some of the things we talk about, you don't really necessarily think of as being related to your brain, but everything is. Your relationships, how you get along with your kids. I mean, every single thing, how we
Managing your
politics. I mean, how things are going in the world. Every sort of thing is connected to how we take care of ourselves, right?
You mean how often you tweet in the middle of the night?
Don't.
Just don't.
Just don't.
All right. So now we're going to start into 6 strategies to create lasting joy from Feel Better Fast and Make It Last. And strategy number 1, and you've heard me talk about this before, is you need to focus daily on what gives you passion and purpose. And for me, that would be you. I love an exercise that we tell our patients to do called the one-page miracle. Virtually every single patient I've seen over the last 30 years, I ask them to do this exercise. So
this is so helpful.
One piece of paper, write down what you want in your relationships, in your work, for your money, for your physical, emotional, and spiritual health. Why are you on the planet? What is your deepest sense of meaning and purpose? And it starts there. So under relationships, I always want to have a kind, caring, loving, supportive, passionate relationship with Tana. I always want that. Now, I don't always feel like that. I may be tired, I may be stressed, I may be mad, whatever. But no matter what is going on in my moment-by-moment life, that is the stake in the ground. Right. And so if I'm smart, when I get this random, rude, irritating thought that I think I should say, I really try to filter it through.
Right.
Will this get me what I want?
Well, and,
kind, caring, loving, supportive, passionate.
And we're all busy. And, I'm at an age like many of our listeners, because they write into me sometimes. Hormones start to just, they wreak havoc with how you feel about yourself, with how you feel within your relationship. This is important when it comes to relationships because everything's not about how you feel about something. And I'm sorry to be that blunt about it, but it's just not. Like you said, you don't always feel loving, but you always want that in your relationship. Same thing. You don't always feel sexy. You don't always feel all these things. But if knowing this is your one-page miracle, if knowing this is ultimately what your goal is, you do it anyways because it's an investment. You do it because it's the right thing to do for your marriage, for your family, for your kids, for your home, for your long-term happiness. It's the right thing to do. You don't like go by moment to moment like feelings, because that will not get you where you want to be, ever.
So write down what you want: relationships, work, money, your physical, emotional, and spiritual self. And then you ask yourself every day, does my behavior get me what I want? And people go, oh, that's so selfish. It's totally not selfish, because the things you want generally are good things that move your life.
Right. If they're not, that's a
forward
whole
in
other
a
thing. You
positive
might need
way.
some therapy. But one thing I want to say about the one-page miracle. One thing I like to tell people is don't write it and put it away where you're not going to see it. Now, if you're going to keep it on you, like in your pocket, that's fine. But I usually coach people to keep it on a bathroom mirror or somewhere where they're going to see it regularly. And one thing that I've done, once you get really used to doing this and you do it regularly, like when I get up in the morning and when I go to bed at night, it's automatically, now it's just automatic. It's sort of in my head. So when I do my prayer and meditation, it's like, okay, relationship, and I would like focus on that. What do I want? And I start and I pray good things for people in my life, you, Chloe, and my mom, and I go through my list. And then next, business, I pray for our business. I pray, you know what I mean? So then you go through it. It's like, it's like on one hand, I know that these are the 5 points that I want to really focus on when I get up in the morning and when I go to bed at night. And it becomes automatic. But if you know that there are those 5 major categories, and then within those, it's like the people in my life, business, what is it that we want to accomplish, and money and
Right.
all
But
that.
notice money is only like one part of that. But
Right.
so many people are so focused on that they abandon their health, they abandon their relationships, and then they wonder why they're miserable.
Right.
The second part is, so these are 6 steps to create lasting joy, know what you want. The second part is you want to start limiting low value dopamine producing activities. So those are things like much caffeine, nicotine, excessive television, politics, video games, undisciplined digital
So
behavior.
let's go just for 1 second. Quickly. I know we need to keep going, but caffeine. So that was a really hard one for me. And I'm not going to lie, it's not that I don't like caffeine. So you got to come up with strategies. So maybe switching to, switch some things to green tea. In the past, I used to drink caffeine all day long, especially when I was working in the hospital. So now in the afternoon, I definitely don't drink any caffeine past 11:30 in the morning. Switch to green tea. And in the morning, we do half calf or quarter calf. I mean, you dilute it down with almond milk. We have strategies so that we're not getting a lot of caffeine. So from where I was, when I used to drink a pot and a half a day of coffee before I met you, and I really understood what caffeine does to the brain. It's not that I don't have any caffeine, but I really limit it, and I still have the idea of the comfort of a cup of coffee, or I'll have decaf, and it still feels like you're having it.
And when I met you, you were way more intense than you are now.
Yeah, I mean, intense is just part of who I am, but
you're calmer,
yeah.
for sure.
Well, I think menopause does that too.
Not generally. And you're absolutely not generally, speaking from a
that's
psychiatrist
true.
standpoint. And scary movies.
Oh my gosh, this is just
Why?
hate scary
So
movies.
you have to go, why does the movie Saw exist?
And Halloween 35. I just want. But my mom used to drag me to these movies when I was little. And I'm I still am traumatized. I hate scary movies so much.
So what do you remember? What movies do you
The
remember?
Hills Have Eyes, Silent Scream, Onion Field. I remember going to those when I was a little girl. And I still to this day ask her, why did you do that to me?
Because she wore out her pleasure
She's like, well, I
centers.
didn't know. I didn't know they were
She
going to be
drank
that
coffee
bad.
all day. She smoked cigarettes.
She's ADD from hell. Come on, let's just say it
ADD.
like it is.
And so this was her stimulant. But when you overstimulate the basal ganglia, where dopamine is produced, when
And
you
I have a rule.
overstimulate, you wear out the nucleus accumbens, which then requires more and more, which explains Saw 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
And I'm
3D.
And I'm gonna throw you under the bus for a second. So I spilled my dirt on the caffeine. Yours is the mistress, okay? So he's got to put parameters around his mistress because I will get really upset and I don't share very well. The mistress is the phone. Okay, that's the other woman is the phone. And so he's always on the news, sports, whatever. But he knows that he can't do that all the time because it's not good for you. So we have boundaries around the phone and we have to do that. And the other one is you would listen to the news way more than I will allow. Like we don't do news first thing in the morning and I do not do news before bed. Those are my rules. Like absolutely no news in the house when I wake up. If I come downstairs and the news is on, like I'm turning it off. This is just not going to happen. So you have to put boundaries around it. It's okay to listen to the news, but it's not the first thing I want to hear and it's not the last thing before bed.
So dumping dopamine wears out your pleasure centers. So some activities that dump dopamine, besides the one we just talked about, helicopter skiing, racing motorcycles, jumping out of airplanes, running with the bulls.
And why? Why?
How is that even rational?
I don't know.
Because it's a dopamine rush.
See, for me, karate is,
life
but that's
without
not
your
a bad
frontal
thing.
lobes.
Like you can do fun
drugs
things.
dump dopamine. So whether it's cocaine or marijuana does it, alcohol does it, opiates do it. You press on the pleasure centers, and over time you wear those suckers out.
But by the way, so does hugging someone you love.
Wait,
like your baby.
you're getting ahead of me. That's dripping. We're into dumping dopamine.
Got it.
Other things that dump dopamine: pornography, video games, constantly falling in love. So
now there are people who get addicted to that, like
Tinder
initial
and Match, and which we're fans of.
No, we're not fans of the.
But
love.
we're not being a fan of addicted. And the one thing is fame. When you become famous and people recognize you when you go to the grocery store, that's like a hit of dopamine. And for the young actresses and singers I saw, my prayer for them is, dear God, please don't let me be famous before my brain is developed.
It's hilarious.
Now, Tana does not like it when people she does sometimes. Were we?
What I
London,
like, hold on.
And people recognize you.
What I like is I like it when people say that something in their life has changed. The teacher in me, the helper in me loves that. The purposeful person. I don't love the recognition part when I'm just out somewhere. Like that kind of freaks me out. It's so weird because I always expect people to recognize you. So when someone comes running at me from like far away, it freaks me out.
You think they're about to attack you?
I do. I get freaked out. So like if someone came running up and knocked on our car window, please don't do that. If you know anything about me, do not do that. So come up slowly, say hello. Don't run up and knock on my window.
So sugar also dumps dopamine. And ultimately, it wears out your pleasure centers. And I talked about people overweight or obese. They actually have a blunted response in their nucleus accumbens, which means they don't feel pleasure, which means they have to overdo things in order to feel normal. So people don't abuse drugs because they just constantly want to feel good. Ultimately, when you wear out the nucleus accumbens, you end up doing drugs again, not so that you're going to get high, so that you're not
normal.
Depressed.
Yeah.
You're using them now as self-medication because you've worn out those pleasure centers. When we come back, we're going to teach you how to drip dopamine. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're so grateful that you are with us, and gratitude drips dopamine. So we're talking about Feel Better Fast and Make It Last. You can go to feelbetterfast.com and get all sorts of free gifts when you pre-order or order the book out November 13th. We're so excited. And we're in the middle of our Brain Excel formula. So we've talked about optimizing your brain, your rational mind, your attachments, and we're now doing the I part of Brain Excel, which is inspiration. And your inspiration for us are the reviews that you write. You have another one?
Yeah, this one's really short, but I really like it because it's so good. So even though I'm self-aware and psychologically minded, that I figured this one out on my own, it felt good to hear you talk about it. I like that I have power over my mind and what I'm holding on to, because being a victim sucks. I love that.
That is actually dripping dopamine.
Yeah.
By feeling empowered.
So here's what I like, is that this person sort of figured some of this out and has done the work, but they're aware enough to know what they listen to and what they do matters. So whether you know it or not, and you already have known it, you need to keep doing it. It's like, I already have a black belt. I still go to karate all the time because it's like, you need to stay in it. You need to keep doing it if you want to think that way, move that way. And it's just something you do. You know, if you're a warrior, you keep doing it. So I like that. It's good.
All right. So we're talking about how do you keep your pleasure centers healthy. You stop activities that dump dopamine, whether it's cigarettes or excessive caffeine, scary movies, jumping out of airplanes, things that dull your pleasure centers that ultimately lead you to feel sad and dissatisfied. But rather, because dopamine is very important, you drip it. Mm-hmm. You find, what are the small ways I can activate my pleasure centers? So let's see, I almost got to work and I was thinking about you. And I called you.
You called me. It was so sweet.
And I just told you were my best friend.
And when you do that, it makes me happy.
I drip dopamine for us both.
Yeah, and I'll now and then just text you out of the blue. And
you do?
Yeah, it's fun.
So we have a lot of dripping going on here. Interestingly, sunlight drips dopamine.
Interesting.
Vitamin D.
But I mean, people who don't get enough sunlight get depressed, so that makes sense.
Right.
So I figured the next one out on my own when I was very young, because I had a tendency to feel a little blue and like fuzzy and not feel that great. And I figured out, man, I think it almost dumped dopamine for me.
Well, when you over exercise, it can dump.
But I didn't feel normal without it. Exercise is one of those things I've never felt normal without exercise.
It also boosts serotonin and dopamine at the same time. It's sort of like the perfect antidepressant.
Yeah, it really is.
Meditation and yoga does it. Massage
absolutely.
Therapy. Pleasurable music.
Yep.
Green tea. We talked about green tea. Oregano, of all things. And magnesium.
And if you haven't listened to our other podcasts with Barry Goldstein, they're so good. Because he has studied what kinds of music work. Like, not all music, meditative music doesn't work for everybody. Different types of music work for different people. So for me, I've never understood why like rock music makes me feel good. And you don't like my kind of music, and I don't like a lot of the music you listen to from the 70s.
Because of what it's attached to in your head.
Right, but on top of that, like bass for some people is what makes them feel grounded and good. And then for other people, they like a more treble, like more light, airy kind of music. It's fascinating. I love listening to his studies on music. So really good. Yeah.
I like A Star Is Born.
Oh, that's one we all agree on.
If you haven't seen that movie,
that is just
we're huge
brilliant.
fans.
And our dear friend was Bradley Cooper's
Which we
coach.
did.
We did a podcast with him.
Roger Love.
Yeah.
Also trained Bradley Cooper for A Star Is Born.
So
All right.
good.
So it's better to drip dopamine to keep your pleasure centers healthy. Purpose drips dopamine. Volunteering drips dopamine.
Yeah.
You took our niece yesterday to Disneyland. You surprised her.
Yeah.
Took her out of school. And
You can't say that out loud.
But you spent the day just doing something nice for someone you love. Mm-hmm. Prayer, lasting love like ours. You mentioned looking at a baby. We have a brand new granddaughter,
Oh my
Haven.
gosh, she's so cute.
I texted Caitlin yesterday, I need new Haven pictures. And she's like, the city? I'm like, no.
That's hilarious.
Holding hands
Yes.
drips dopamine as long as you hold the hand of somebody you really like. Teamwork, gratitude. I mean, we're so grateful to the people that listen, traveling, actually looking at your photo album of places
Yeah, the
that
memories,
you've
the
been,
good memories.
like us when we went to Venice.
Yeah.
Pumpkin seeds help drip
Really?
dopamine.
That's weird.
They boost dopamine.
Oh, interesting.
Fish oil.
That was one I didn't know about.
SAMe, the supplement, SAMe, tyrosine. So omega-3 fatty acids, SAMe, tyrosine, all available from BrainMD. So I just want you to be thinking about, am I dumping dopamine with, am I like overdoing it with the pleasure things that wear out my pleasure centers that mean I'm more likely to do those things just so I don't feel depressed? Or am I getting into the habit of dripping dopamine?
Right.
The next thing I want to talk about, so we've talked about 4 ways to create lasting joy. Know what you want. Avoid things that dump dopamine. Do things that drip dopamine. And the 4th one is to focus on living each moment with passion and purpose. So does the food you are eating, the conversations you are having, your exercise, your activities, your friendships fit the reason you are on this planet?
Right.
Do they fit your purpose? So under rational mind, I like, is it true? I love these 3-word questions. And under inspiration, does it fit? Does it fit the goals?
Well, and if
I
you're doing
have for
something
my
that you
life?
know doesn't, then I really like the one that you taught me, which is then what?
Then
if I
what?
do this, then what?
Then what happens?
Right.
Right. If I dump dopamine, then what happens? And one of my favorite all-time books, like ever,
Me too.
is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
If you haven't read it, you should read it.
And he's a psychiatrist during World War II who was a prisoner of the Nazi concentration camps. And he wrote about his experience on people who survived and people who didn't. And he said it basically came down to meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
And
powerful
he
book.
says, if it's meaningful, I'll do it. If it's not meaningful, I don't have
We did
time
an
for it.
amazing podcast with, he's not only a dear friend of yours, but he was on Viktor Frankl's, was he on his board or whatever?
Yes,
He worked
and he
with
helped distribute his
Right.
materials worldwide. Dr.
really
Jeff
good.
Zeig. So Frankl says there's 3 ways to create meaning. 1, purposeful work or being productive. So you and I do that all the time. Asking questions such as, why is the world a better place because I am here? Or what do I contribute? The second one we also do is love. Loving the people who are central in your life. So the purpose you have with your mom, the purpose you have with Chloe, the purpose you have with me, the purpose you have with our nieces and your sisters. And then the third one is courage in the face of difficulty, shouldering whatever difficult fate we have and helping others shoulder theirs.
You know, one thing that, and I actually learned this from our other friend, Tony Robbins. He had come here and he just taught me a couple of strategies at a time when I was really struggling. And I really like this because it's always easy to say to do these things. But at the time that you actually need to do them, it's not always easy to do them if you're not in the right frame of mind. So putting yourself, like how you look at, okay, I need to do a loving thing for this person, but I'm really busy and I have stuff to do and I don't have time. And so if you go down that road, that makes doing a loving thing for that person really hard. And what I really like about some of the strategies I learned through his work was it's how you, and we do the same thing in our own way, but how you, this loving thing that I'm doing for that person, how you say it, how you position it makes such a powerful difference. By doing this thing, my life is better too. And you like if you just flip that really quickly, it just makes it easier. How you write it down, how you think about doing that thing for that person makes a difference in the amount of stress in your life and whether you get that dopamine drip or not.
So we've talked about knowing what you want, 1-page miracle, avoiding behaviors that dump dopamine, doing things that drip dopamine, and focus on living each moment with passion and purpose. When we come back, we're going to talk about 2 more ways to create joy every day in your life. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're listening to Inspiration Week from Feel Better Fast and Make It Last, our series on my new book. We hope you get it. And if you do, if you download it or you buy it online or pre-order it, you go to feelbetterfast.com. We have some amazing gifts for you, including Tana's brand new cookbook, The 10-Day Brain Boost, as well as some bonus audios, the first chapter of the introduction, and we would just be so grateful. In this series, we have talked about whenever you write a review of the podcast, you inspire us. You actually drip dopamine into our brains. So what do you have for dripping dopamine?
So this one is titled Useful for the Entire Family by BDOU. That's their BDOU1. That's their tagline. There's so much great information in these podcasts. I love listening to them. I picked up the book, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, and it has literally changed our whole family's lives. These podcasts are proving to be just as useful. Thank you.
That's what we want. I mean, ultimately, it's about get this information and then give it away, because it is in the act of giving, because when you give it away, you actually create your own support group, making it more likely you'll stay on the program forever. And so in Inspiration, we're talking about ways to create joy. So it's the one-page miracle, know what you want. Stop dumping dopamine, like high sugar foods, obviously, drugs, scary movies, things that dump dopamine and wear out your pleasure centers. You want to drip dopamine.
Right.
So holding hands, having
Hugging,
purpose.
kissing people you love, doing something nice.
Doing something nice. And then we were talking about living each moment with purpose. And we talked about Viktor Frankl and courage in the face of difficulty, love, doing purposeful work. But there's a great TED Talk that I love on how to know your purpose in 5 minutes. And you can watch it. It's Adam Leipzig's, Leipzig, TED Talk. And it's so simple, but it's so powerful. And so 5 questions. So number 1 is, who are you?
I'm Tana.
Tana, right? I'm Daniel. What do you love to do?
So I love to help the people I love, and I love to teach. I love doing karate. I mean, there are a lot of things I love, but as far as purposeful things, I love helping people that I love.
So it's not a surprise given that you're a nurse.
Right.
Right? And I'm a doctor. And I love to write. I love to teach. I love to help people heal. The third question, so who are you, Tana? What do you love to do? I love to help.
And I also love to
teach.
speak and write. So.
Speak and write. So question 3, whom do you do it for? Or how does your work connect you to others?
So first and foremost is my family. I'm clear on that. So first and foremost is my family. Next would be our community and other people and whoever else wants help, really.
Okay, so my name is Tana. I love to help and speak and write and teach. I do it for my family and I do it for our community. Fourth question, what do those people want or need from you?
So that's an interesting question. So if I were to think about what they say to me, some of them actually do need something like as simple as, oh, I need advice or coaching with my health. But what I normally hear is that they need a strong role model or inspiration somehow. So I think that what I'm giving them is information, but that's not what I hear back from people. Does that make sense?
So they need you to teach and inspire them.
Yeah, I think what they're really looking
Because they want the information, but they also want the passion you have.
Yeah, I think
behind
I think you can get the information almost anywhere. I think you need a delivery system as well.
The fifth question is, how do they change as a result of what you do?
My opinion is I think they start to believe they can do it and they begin to do it.
And some people, like Angie, lost over 100 pounds.
Right, because she believed she could do it for the first time. That's my point. It's not that I did it for her. She finally believed she could do it.
And your family
So
changes.
empowerment is the word I'm looking for.
So you empower people
Yeah.
to believe
That they are
can change.
powerful. Yeah.
Awesome. So my name is Daniel. I love optimizing people's brains and inspiring them to care about it. I love doing it within the context of our team here at Amen Clinics. We do it for our families, those who come to our clinics, read our books, and watch our shows. The people we touch want to suffer less, to feel better, be sharper, and have greater control over their own lives. As a result of what we do, people change by having better brains and better lives. Mm-hmm. They suffer less, become happier and healthier, and pass it on to others. Mm-hmm. So notice that 2 of the 5 questions are about me, 3 of them are about other people. There's a Chinese saying that goes, if you want happiness for an hour, take a nap.
Yeah.
If you want happiness for a day, go fishing. If you want happiness for a year, inherit a fortune. If you want happiness for a lifetime, help somebody.
That's so true.
Happiness is found in helping others. So when someone asks you what you do, and this just happened to us recently when we went to an event, when you're at a gathering and someone asks, what do you do? Answer them by telling them the answer to question number 5. So in my example, when people ask me what I do, I'll often say, as a result of what we do, people have better brains and better lives. They suffer less, become happier and healthier, and pass it on to others. Mm-hmm. And that's so much better than to say I'm a writer and doctor and Tana's husband. By answering that simple question. And in your case, it's I empower people
with information.
So
they can change their lives, transform their health.
So by answering that simple question, I get to share, and you get to share the passion, the purpose of your life with many of the people, which increases dopamine and keeps your pleasure centers healthy. So those of you that are listening, how would you answer that question? So remember, who are you? What do you love to do? Who do you do it for? What do those people want or need from you? And how do they change as a result of what you do? Quickly, to finish Inspiration Week, the 5th strategy to create lasting joy is you have to start living with the end in mind.
Yeah.
When I was in college, one of the most important classes I ever took was a class on death and dying.
Me too. I had to take one on death and dying also.
And
So interesting.
psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, probably the most famous person to study death and dying, in her book on death and dying says, it is the denial of death that is partially responsible for people living
Isn't that
empty, purposeless lives.
Isn't that interesting?
For when you live as if you'll live forever, it becomes too easy to postpone the things you know you must do.
Yeah. I think that's so true. So, and I know it sounds so morbid, and actually Chloe, our daughter, our teenage daughter, used to get mad at me. Now she understands. She's old enough now to understand. Because we sort of talk that way in our house. We speak in a way that probably sounds morbid to a lot of other people. So I love the question that we often ask when things are not going well and not going right. Even things that seem big to a lot of people. It's like, does this have eternal value? And then the next part that follows that in my mind, especially as somebody who's been sick and had to sort of face that early on in life, that idea, none of us are getting out of here alive. The question is, what are you going to do while you're here, right? None of us are staying forever. So what are you going to do with the time you have here? And it just changes how you see things.
And I think so many people are afraid of death or afraid they haven't done what they were put on earth to do. And then the last part of creating lasting joy is share your most purposeful stories. Mm-hmm. So the stories that really make your heart sing, share them with the people you care about. And one of the things I loved doing with my grandparents was to have them share their most powerful stories.
Chloe still loves that. We'll be driving, and when my mom and I are together, she wants to hear stories from the past. I'm like, no, let's not do this. It's traumatizing to me. But she loves it.
Well, you have to supervise some of those stories.
I'm
Don't
joking.
tell them everything.
I'm teasing. But yeah. No, it's
so
good.
there are tiny habits to boost inspiration. When I need to get work done, put down the phone or put it on Do Not Disturb and stop the constant pings or drips of dopamine that try to addict you. Mm. Read your one-page miracle every day and ask, will my behavior today get me what I want? When I get upset, I'll ask myself, and you and I do this a lot,
does this have
eternal value? Mm-hmm. And before bed, I'll write down one purposeful thing I did today. You can feel better fast and make it last. Stay with us. Use the code podcast10 to get a 10% discount on a full evaluation at amenclinics.com or on our supplements at brainmdhealth.com. Thank you for listening to the Brain Warriors Way podcast. Go to iTunes and leave a review, and you'll automatically be entered into a drawing to get a free signed copy of the Brain Warriors Way and the Brain Warriors Way cookbook we give away every month.